Hey, welcome there, all you struggling hunters out there, to another episode here with the struggling hunters. Episode 64. Uh, Welcome. Thank you for listening, tuning in. Take some time out of your day to listen to what we have to say. Um, hopefully, hopefully we can keep your interest to get a little bit towards the end of our podcast. But anyways, we got we got a little bit planned for you tonight. We'll talk a little bit about bows, and then I want to talk a little bit about my weekend scouting. This last weekend had some interesting things happened to me this weekend that were I didn't think were, I guess I never been in the elk woods and had it happen to me. Anyways, so stay tuned for that. But before we reach to that, we're gonna dive into what Eric's been learning about, and maybe I don't know if he has some tricks, some words of wisdom, but he's prepared for something for us. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of go. So with me getting into archery, and if this is the first time that you're listening to this podcast, I just got into it this year, somewhere around February. I can't remember exactly, but I bought my first bow, and it's kind of taken hold of my life to where I'm obsessed with this stuff. I'm thinking about it all the time. Uh, I don't even know if I told you, Joe, but I got on Amazon a couple weekends ago and bought inserts, bought some lighted nocks. What else? A field tip. Oh, I think I did tell you actually, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Bought field tips, bought a couple.
Christmas
What's
came
that?
in June. Christmas came in
Yeah,
June.
yeah. Chris, I spoiled myself. and I bought some broadheads too. And so I've been getting into it, and I've been mostly like YouTube research and stuff. That's always more appealing to me. I try to look up articles, but honestly I'd rather just watch videos than
Well,
read articles.
well, no, I
They're more
get you
entertaining.
there. Well, they're not only entertaining, but like you kind of, I don't know how many times, like for me, sometimes I'll read an article and I'll try to play it out in my head, and then I'll try to sit down and do something. But at least watching it on YouTube, I get to see what they messed up on and hopefully not make that same mistake.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, going down the whole of YouTube, a couple of things that I wanted to share that I thought was pretty interesting. Um, Speaking of articles, there's a few articles running around there where they did some studies on whisker biscuits and dropaways.
Okay.
And what I found really interesting, because I've been stressing about that, wondering if I could get more performance out of a drop away or stick with my whisker biscuit.
Yeah.
And there's actually some pretty serious dudes that have hunted with bow forever and ever that shoot a whisker biscuit. And then there's the other guys that shoot dropaways. And there's an article out there that they kept referencing, and I was gonna try to link to it. Maybe before I drop this, I'll try to find that article and then at least link it in the description. Um, uh, but anyways, the point is I guess there was a study done on dropaways and whisker biscuits, and there was not that much of a difference as far as accuracy. Maybe a slight difference, it sounded like,
Okay.
whenever it came to whisker biscuit and drop away. But doing more research, I also kind of found benefits for the whisker biscuit and benefits for the drop away. Some of the benefits for the whisker biscuit is obviously you set your arrow in there and it stays in there for the most part, right? It's kind
Right.
of hard to pop back out. And so that's
And
kind of a benefit. What's that?
and not so many moving parts. Like it's just
And
one
not so
piece.
many. Yeah, it's really easy. Yeah, exactly. And I kind of like that. And well, on a personal level, before I go any further, I'll probably, or obviously I'm trying the whisker biscuit right now. in the future, I want to at least try a drop away, just see what it feels like, looks like, see if I like it more.
Right.
Plus, I want to kind of play with my arrows a little bit more too, and I'll explain that here in a second. Um, so the whisker brisket and the drop away, just shooting a straight arrow, there's not much of an advantage toward either, which was kind of relieving and interesting at the same time, because I'm like, oh, that's cool. I don't have to go spend $200 on a drop away.
Right.
Some of those drop away cost more than my bow did, and I don't want to spend that kind of money.
Right.
So, um,
My bow's only worth $50, but my dang drop away is worth 3,000.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it could. I think they can get up there, and so that was kind of relieving. Like here, and I heard it multiple times whenever I was going down the rabbit hole of YouTube. I heard it from a couple different. They'd always reference this study, and like I said, partially I didn't have time, partially I didn't really look that hard to find the study, but they kept referencing this study that was done, that there was not much of a difference between whisker biscuits and drop aways. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Anyway, so moving forward, the whisker biscuit kind of has its advantages. Like I said, the arrows don't pop out, but the drop aways, and then a disadvantage to a whisker biscuit though is if you have a helical on your fletchings where they kind of are like curved for more dramatic spin.
Okay.
You can't really do that through a whisker biscuit. It'll tear those fletchings up after so many shots, and honestly, I don't even think you'll get the true flight that a person's looking for through a whisker biscuit. Yeah. And then so on a drop away, obviously the benefit is less friction, right? Like that's kind of the goal, less friction through the arrow.
Right.
But the disadvantage is sometimes there's nothing holding that arrow. So, which I think it would kind of be a little bit of a tuning problem more than anything, because I don't think it's that big of a problem. But your arrow, as it's coming out and there's nothing kind of holding it in place for that split second, it could veer left or right because there's just nothing holding it except the string pushing it. And so that's kind of a disadvantage, but I don't think that's quite that common. And it might be a tuning issue with your bow if that's happening with your arrows. So it is what it is. But also the advantage to a drop away is there's less friction. And also, this is another part that I was kind of getting. This is where I'm excited to try some drop away stuff. Is putting a helical on my arrows, where they're kind of help that spin with your arrow and make a tighter spin to help them spin into the target. And I imagine it, even that spin, getting a more dramatic spin off of your arrow whenever it goes into an animal with your broadhead, it'll help kind of tear things up even more, right? Help create a hole.
On top of that too is, you think about it, like the faster the riflings are in a rifle, the tighter that bullet spins going down the barrel, the more accurate it is further down the lane.
Downrange.
So
yeah.
The faster you can get that arrow to spin, and you can get it to spin tightly and correctly, you're going to be able to maybe carry more speed and even maybe be a little bit more accurate too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree 100%. And it'd be kind of cool, to kind of have that whole setup. The other thing is doing your own fletchings on your arrows. I went down that rabbit hole with that too, watching all these videos where, and there's, I wish I would have remembered the name of the tool that they use to do it, but it's like real easy. There's basically you set your arrow in it, and there's 3 prongs that you glue your fletchings on, or you put some glue on your fletchings, and there's these 3 prongs that you fold up and put a cap on to kind of tighten it up to your arrow, and you basically let it set for a minute, to set for the glue to set, and you're done with an arrow that quick. Um, it was pretty. I can't remember the name of the whatever you call it. I can't remember the name of it, but it was pretty cool little deal. It looked pretty sharp. I've been really getting into the more technical stuff and like how to tune your bow. I'm a little nervous of all that. True, full transparency, I'm a little nervous to do all of it, but I also figure if I'm out in the woods and something goes wrong, I'm gonna need to know something, right? So
Right.
I've been trying to learn that. Plus, I just want to. I mean, I'll go to somebody that's been doing it for years to like pick up little tricks or whatever whenever I can. But at the same time, I want to learn it myself, just because at the end of the day, it's a little bit cheaper, it's a little bit faster, right? If like right now, if I want to go get my arrows cut and everything, I got to make a trip down to Cabela's and or wherever. I've been going to
Right.
Cabela's lately, but take a trip down there, and then if there's people in front of me, I got to wait for them, and it's a whole process. But if I kind of slowly pick up the equipment and kind of start getting the stuff for myself, I'll be able to kind of do all that stuff and lickety split. So,
Right.
yeah, I've just been kind of nerding out, just really watching all those kind of videos on doing bows. But I really thought that was cool about the difference between dropaways and whisker biscuits and the differences, because somebody that, I've talked to a lot of people that kind of have both, and you talk to somebody that has a drop away and they laugh at your whisker biscuit, and
Oh,
there's
for
people that have
sure.
whisker biscuits that, yeah. And so I went down the rabbit hole, and there was a lot of guys that are serious bow hunters. They have the best bows that the market has to offer, and the best sights, the best what else is there on a bow? The best string, the best everything on a bow, but then they're shooting it out with a whisker biscuit, so it's
Well, I think like the one of the things like what you're doing, is wise is, trying to gather as much information as you can and then finding what you want and then understanding why you want it, like like you said, like it doesn't seem like there's all that much difference between a whisker biscuit and a drop away, but there is some advantages to one and to the other. Are you okay with the disadvantages of the one? Like maybe you're not, maybe you are, but at least it's not like, oh, this is what I just went down to the store because good old archery Bob said that I should put this on my bow.
right. Yeah. Figuring it out for myself. And it kind of brought a little bit of ease to myself for that reason too, because I was thinking the same thing. Cause I'm like, oh, I'm not a real hunter if I don't have a drop away by hunt
Right.
season, so, but then after kind of doing that research, I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, I mean, would a drop away be better in some cases? Maybe, but in other cases, the whisker biscuit will be just fine. So, this year I'll probably just use the whisker. I might update my whisker biscuit to that. I don't know, that three prong
Yeah.
whisker biscuit, or it's kind of like a whisker biscuit, but I really like the idea of that because I feel like it's possible that it won't hit the fletchings on the way out of
Right.
the, I can't remember. I need to get better about my research or write down the names of this. So I'm not always saying I can't remember, but anybody that knows anything about bows probably know what I'm talking about or have an idea at least. But
Right.
so yeah, it was, but yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that. And one thing I did do this weekend is I turned up my bow, because whenever I started out, and I mean, for me, I know a lot of dudes won't do this, but for me, I'm kind of glad I did for certain reasons, kind of the learning curve of shooting my bow. But when I first got my bow, I had them I had them set my poundage to around 54 pounds. And I've
Yeah.
been shooting that way for a while. This weekend I went ahead and maxed it out, and I like it. It works for me. I have plenty of strength to pull it back. Like, that's not the problem at all, but I just wanted to get over that learning curve. I will say at 68 pounds, it's a little hard to admit, sort of because of my ego, but I could see where instead of doing 50 arrows, I'm probably maxed out at like 20, 25, with
Right.
the poundage turned up, get a little tired around that much. Um, but with practice and time behind the bow, I probably could get back up to 50 with no problem, just building that bow muscle.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I turned it up, and like I said, for me, I like it. It seemed fine for me, um, and yeah, as time goes on, I'm just learning little things, but I'm getting so obsessed with this stuff, and I just thought it would be kind of cool to go down that rabbit hole with everybody. I don't know how much people do research or anything, but I figured everybody else might kind of feel a little relief at the fact of Whisker Biscuit and a drop away. uh Maybe in the next podcast I'll find that article and be able to kind of spit more definite numbers and stuff. But from what I understand, this study that they did, there was not much of a difference, like maybe an inch difference in your grouping or something like that, but it wasn't real critical. And I don't know the yardage or anything, but the other thing that, and I'm sure somebody out there could probably explain the whole thing, but so my bow, turning it up to 68 pounds, I have a 28-inch draw. Turning it up to, and I think it's 68. I have this people are gonna laugh, but I had to work with what I had. I have this, like, what they call, like, this luggage scale that I bought for like $5 or something at, like, I don't even know where I bought it, but I saw it and I was like, oh, that'd be, well, actually I bought it because I had the idea to make a YouTube video about my pack and see how much my pack weighed. So that's why I bought it. But I'm sitting there trying to figure out my poundage on my bow, and I have the Diamond Edge MV Pro bow, and at 28-inch draw, I can get a max of about 68 pounds. And that's what that's what that luggage scale said. I just hooked it through the D ring and pulled it back, and
Yeah.
it had, anyways. So that's what it said. So I was like, okay, I'm maxed out, and I definitely maxed out. And I'm like, okay, I'm about 68 pounds. So I'm not quite 70, but anyways, one part that I was trying to figure out, if I have a 68-pound bow and another guy on the side of me has a 68-pound bow, essentially he could get 330 feet per second, but my bow maxes out like 397 or 297, 298 feet per second. I'm kind of throwing numbers out there, but I'm like, how does that work? How does that work
Does he have a longer draw?
well, I want to say, because some of these bow manufacturers are saying, like, 340 feet per second at a 30-inch draw.
So the way
But
I
my bow,
understand
or go ahead.
the way I understand it is that you said, like you said, a 30-inch draw. So, and you're saying you have a 29-inch draw,
28.
28-inch draw. So if I understand correctly, so the longer the arrow, so here's your rest and then your arrow, my pin represents the arrow, finger represents the rest. And the longer the arrow kind of stays on the shaft, and before it releases from the string, it's building that much more energy.
Well, I understand that, but manufacturers,
Uh,
what my point is like you get a Hoyt bow, right? And they
uh-huh.
say 30-inch draw, 360 feet per second. I'm totally making up those numbers because somebody will probably say, "Oh, that's not what they say. They say 380." My point is though is Hoyt will say 30-inch draw, 360 feet per second. But then like the Diamond Edge Pro will say 30-inch draw, 330 feet per second. So my question is if they're the same draw, the same poundage, how are they different feet per seconds?
Maybe it has something to do.
Go ahead.
No, maybe it has something to do with the cams.
That kind of makes sense. That kind of makes sense. I was gonna try to look that up and bring it up later. I wasn't even gonna bring it up tonight, but then I'm kind of in the flow, so I decided to. But um, but yeah, it was just kind of one of those questions. I'm like, but that makes sense. So it could be in the cams for sure.
Yeah.
The more expensive cams, the more force it pushes. But I was just thinking of the. I'm like, same draw length and same poundage. How could it? But that makes
Right.
sense.
Right.
But there's so many levels to this game. So I got, like I said, I got the Diamond Edge MV Pro, or is it Diamond in the Edge Pro? Anyways, whatever it is, I got that. And I mean, your string, there's better string out there. I'm like, really? The string is different, So, I mean, there's just levels to this game, and I'm
Right.
gonna go broke, probably. My wife's gonna be like, "How come we can't pay the mortgage this month? We're getting kicked out of our house." And I'll be, "Yeah, but look at my bow.
Right.
At least we got our bow."
Right.
So yeah, it's crazy, man. But I'm loving it. I mean, I don't know. I've said it before. I just kind of kick myself in the butt for not getting into it sooner.
Yeah, it's definitely like there's a lot to it that you don't realize it. But like but you can keep it very basic and very simple too. That whichever way you want to go about it, you can go about it.
Yeah. And I'm with that mentality too. Like simpler, keep it simple. Cause there's something to be said. You kind of alluded to it earlier. Uh you don't want to go out there and have a drop away that uh fails on you, especially during a shot
Right.
when it's crunch time and it's a trophy bowl. I mean, you don't, so simpler may be better in that case.
Right.
There's two different drop away, and there's like a cam drop away. It's either a cam drop away or a leaf drop away. Then there's a string drop away. So
Hmm.
like one connects to your string when you pull it back,
Yeah.
and then the other one connects to your cam string. And from what I understand, I think it's your cam string. I could be getting that wrong. Again, I should have probably before I brought this up did a little more research, but they were saying that there was a difference between the two because the one that's on your string, not that it happens often, but it could fell on you because your string could do something different that it's not supposed to do. Like there's more give and play and pulling your string back than hooking it up to your cam
Uh,
string, because that's more that has a little more consistency to it to where it has less chance of a failure.
gotcha.
I don't know. It kind of made sense when I was watching it, but I didn't really retain everything the way I should have. So, um, yeah, but it was interesting though. So
Huh.
if I do get a drop away, I'll probably try to get that cam one. But they had one I was looking up one. It was True Glow, and it was like $50 online. It was like one of the cheaper ones I could find. I watched some reviews on it, and it seemed like it did all right. The only downfall, and I've had a little bit of issue with it already, is it was made out of, it was all plastic. It wasn't
Uh,
made out of metal at all. And not saying that that's a bad thing, but with my sight, the sight that came on my bow, I already replaced my sight because that thing was plastic, and it was a cheap sight and it didn't last long. Um, so I was kind of weary about that. I'm like, I would like to get it just because it's cheap and, kind of get used to the drop away idea. But out there hunting, I'd be a little bit nervous for the fact of it breaking, busting on me
right.
when I don't need it to.
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, I think that's kind of all I have for the bow situation.
Cool. Well, that seems like like I said earlier, going down a rabbit hole and getting some understanding for yourself, which is, it's going to make you that much of a better hunter too, because of understanding your gear, you know, which is a good thing. So yeah, that's awesome. And I guess with that, I'll dive into my Saturday scouting escapade.
Yeah, I'm kind. Yeah, I haven't even heard this, so I'm kind of
Yeah,
excited
I've
to
been
hear
I've been
what you.
saving it. So I took off Friday after work and just went up Saturday to do quick scouting, um, or Friday night and Saturday. And so I remember last week I told you we went for that drive and we saw some elk. And well, I went down in the ridge, kind of where the elk were. There's a road, of course there's a road, but I went down there a ways. And as I was going down there, I came across a puddle, and there inside the puddle there was some elk tracks in it, and I got a little excited, and I kept going a little further, and finally I got to a spot, and I was like, okay, I think this looks pretty good. It has some good things about it that I like. So I hopped out of the truck, went did a little went hiking down. Well, I took off hiking, and went crested over the edge, and kind of as soon as I did, I caught a whiff of elk. Like I can just smell elk, and I was like, okay. I saw a lot of old sign too, and so I was like, well, they've been in here. It was actually, I think, a lot of old sign. I thought maybe it was sheep or something, but the wind was blowing in my face, so I was like, well, if the wind's in my favor, I'll just keep walking into the wind. And I didn't. It's not like I smelt them the whole time I was walking, but I caught a pretty good whiff. So I was like, I'll just go in that direction because that's more or less the direction that the smell came from. And I get going, got going a little bit, and I stopped for some reason, and and I think I was checking out a spot to see if I liked where I was. I was just going to sit down in glass, but as I was doing so, I heard an elk bugle. And I didn't know that they'd bugle like this early. And I was like, I'm hearing things, because I was like, we're months away from the rut. And then I hear one bugle, then I heard a totally different bugle. Like, and then I heard there's another one that sounded like, I think it was a spike elk, but it sounded like a cow mew, but just really drawn out. And there was one that was really had a guttural sound to it. And so I was like, man, someone down here just like playing with me, and I'll sitting there listening to them. And then I can start hearing the cows mewing, like doing their little talking back and forth. And I was like, man, they're close. And I almost was like, well, I got the wind in my favor, just keep pushing. But I was like, nah, I'm just here to scout. I don't want to push them out of the area just yet, like I don't want to have them take off. So I just parked it. I just sat down, and I could watch the hillside away from me. And I just sat there, and I can hear the cows talking and hear the two or three different, I think there was three different bulls bugling, with one of them being the spike. And I just sat there. I can hear them like get further away from me. And as they were doing that, I was watching across from me, and I watched two cows. I think it was two cows, but two elk. They were kind of feeding on the hillside, and they fed down and away. And I caught two or three other elk out to my left on the hillside, and on the same ridge as me, but a different finger ridge. There was a cow and two calves I guess there was two cows and then two calves, but the one cow had two calves, I think, because they wandered off, and this other cow just kept kind of wandering around in this meadow all by herself, and I never saw those calves again. But the whole time I'm hearing elk bugles and cow mews, and I was like, man, someone's in here playing with me. And but I was the only truck in there. When I parked, there were some four-wheelers that passed me, but they passed me. It wasn't they were these elk were behind where I parked, so it wasn't like these people passed me on the four-wheeler, jumped off, and then ran behind me and started, you know, calling. So it's like it has to be elk. Like I'm sure it happens, but I'd never heard it in July. It was just
Yeah.
odd.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of it either. I mean, most people assume that they don't start till September, even sometimes mid-September.
Right. And
So I want go ahead.
I did get it on my record it. Like I do have, you can faintly hear it, but I do have video recording of audio of hearing the elk bugle. So
Really?
yeah,
You should figure out a way to stitch that into the end of this podcast, and just so people can kind of at the end just watch it,
yeah,
or make a quick maybe we could do a short on YouTube and be
yeah,
the like the YouTube shorts, or
right.
do both.
I'll probably do
I
both.
don't know. It's up to you. I'll give you creative.
Cool.
I'll give you creative power.
Thanks, boss. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Just don't crack the whip on me, okay?
Yeah, yeah. No, but I mean, whatever one though, we should do it.
Yeah, but like I said, that was just odd. Like it was cool because I got to sit there and watch these elk across the way and sit there and listen to them bugle and the cows mew. Like it was kind of fun. And I had a little spike buck that was down in front of me. He was feeding around in front of me. Didn't know I was there till I got up to leave. He was
Oh,
fun to watch.
really?
Yeah, his spikes were about maybe the size of my pinky or smaller.
Oh,
Little
wow.
velvet, little velvet nubs.
Wow, that's awesome,
So
man. Yeah, you got into all kinds of activity.
yeah, Friday was really good. And then that was kind of an afterthought. Like I wasn't going to head down that way. I was wanting to scout the other area where I've been hunting. And so, I'm not I wanted to kind of maybe stay there and get up Saturday morning, but I didn't want to push the elk, if they're in there, kind of want to let them hopefully stay in there as long as possible. So I got up Friday or Saturday morning and did a big 8-mile loop and hiked down into the bottom of one of the canyons I've been hunting, looking for water. And one of the things that I picked up on, and I think I've always picked up on, but I'm starting to clue into a little bit more, was I saw more trail activity or more elk activity or elk passing through in the timber than in the Quakies. I hiking through the Quakies, I could cut a good trail in it, and a good trail would go for a little bit, but it would always peter out at some point. But I get into the timber and there would be multiple good trails going through the timber and some good bedding areas where I can see where they bedded down a handful, like maybe not today, but over the years they use that, which I was like, well, I got to remember that yeah, the Quakies offer a lot of cover, but they're not really in there as much as they are as the big timber.
It's kind of interesting you say that though, because I feel like we kind of experienced that on a smaller scale when you came up with us. I mean, the only elk that we ran across was in the dark timber for the most part,
Right.
and all the tracks that we saw with the fresh snow.
Yeah.
That was kind of amazing. All the tracks that we saw.
Correct. For like, and we knew like it was just a 24-hour, or it was only like 8 hours snow, and there was tracks going everywhere.
Yeah. Huh. That's really interesting. You kind of got me thinking.
And then, like, so I hiked, was looking for water, and I hiked the creek bottoms a handful for down a little ways, and I maybe cut one elk track, I think, the whole time I did that. And like I didn't see, I thought for sure I'd be seeing elk tracks in there or in some of the trails crossings, but there wasn't anything in there. Hiked up to the one of the ridges, found some water, and walked around like a little spring, that was puddled, pond. Not really, it wasn't a pond, but it was bigger than a puddle. And I walked around that, and I think I saw, I want to say it was a moose track, not even an elk track, but
Mm.
you know, and it was, I thought for sure I'd see, some elk tracks in it, but I didn't see any elk tracks in it, which was kind of interesting, I thought. But did a big 8 mile loop and saw more tracks on the road than when I was hiking back to the truck. There was another puddle and there was more elk tracks in it. So I saw more elk tracks on the road than I did in the woods.
Oh wow. Well, maybe that's good for the road hunters.
Right, exactly. But that was my Friday and Saturday, and I came home Saturday evening and just hung out the rest of the weekend with the wife.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That sounds exciting. I'm really curious. I kind of want to see if we can look up some articles or something about bugles in the midsummer and what that's all about.
Right. Like I didn't believe it. I was like, no one's
Yeah.
gonna believe me. And then I was like, I just got my phone, to be able to pull a recording, and it's not like I'm out there with the mic, like, hey, bugle in here. No one's gonna believe me. It's July, and I got 3 different bugles going on.
Yeah. Oh man, that's really weird. I'm really curious if there's a rhyme or reason for it.
Right. And and they were active about it. It wasn't like I heard one and then it was quiet for like 10 minutes. Well, there was quiet for 10 minutes, at times. But at other times, they would sound off, 2 or 3 at a time, and then they would be active for a little bit, and then they'd go back to being quiet. But it was interesting.
Where did they sound different than like what you'd expect in the middle of the rut, or was it just like a regular old elk bugle?
Yeah, like there was one that had, like a big ramp up, and then it had a little bit of a guttural to it, like a little rough on the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, that spike one, it would sound like a cow getting ready to bugle, but didn't have anything on the end of it.
Mm. Ah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really I want to see. I'm gonna. Yeah, I want to do some research and see if what they say about that. What what it means, what it comes down to.
Right. And like, yeah. So, and it wasn't like I know I probably keep saying it. It wasn't I just heard one. I heard 2 or 3, or I heard 3 at the most bugling.
Multiple times too.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. Hmm.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
exciting. That's a fun thing. Well, before we get off here or whatever, um, I just think that like that's what I love about going out. You just never know what you're gonna come across. I mean, sometimes you come across nothing, and sometimes you come across activity like that totally
right.
surprises you. It's just
Yeah. I What blew me away. I was like, no, I didn't hear it. I'm hearing
yeah,
things.
yeah,
That dang bird, like
yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. That's cool.
But yeah, it was exciting. I'm glad. I just hope that I'll probably go back and scout that area again. I just hope no one else gets in there.
Yeah, right. Blows it up.
Right.
Yeah, that's. I mean, at least you kind of got an idea where they're at.
Right.
You planning on getting scouting over there a few more times before you?
Yeah, I'm hoping I can get over there once, maybe twice more.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be good. That'll be exciting.
Yeah. It would. It will be. It's. Yeah. It's gonna be nice. It will be nice. It'll be fun. And
Yeah,
yeah,
we're both getting our elks this year.
we are. Yeah. I was trying to think anything like on Saturday. There's a couple of the creeks were running a little low, I think, and uh and I remember 2 years ago when I was in that same area listening to. I didn't drop all the way to the creek, but I could hear it, like rumbling, rushing pretty good
Mm-hmm.
during the hunt. And now in July, I was like right on it, and I could barely hear it. Like there was good water going through it, but you could hear it like the babbling brook. It wasn't like a big roar going down through there.
Right.
So there definitely is less water, but I was still kind of surprised with how green it is still. But
Well, that's a good thing though.
yeah.
You've been getting a little more rain over there in Utah, or?
Well, I when I left after work Friday, I drove through some rain, and when I got up there on the spot, um, like I said, that I had tracks and puddles, so I know it rained up there at some point. I just don't know when.
Mm. Yeah, that's last week we got hit with a few rain showers here and there, but they're pretty good size rain showers, wetting everything up a little bit, which is what we need. I hope we get a
Yeah,
few more.
right.
So, well, is that all you got?
Yeah, that's all I got.
Sweet. Well, I'll get us out of here, I think.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks for listening, giving us another shot, another week. Appreciate you guys' support. Thanks for the interaction on YouTube and on the podcast platform. It's we're having fun doing the thing. So thank you guys for everything. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're hearing this for the first time. If you're already subscribed, just make sure you hit like. It helps our algorithm out, helps us out. So with that said, thanks for listening to the Struggling Hunters, and we'll see you next week. Later, guys.
Later.